Hello and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. My name's Colette and I'm here today to do a reading for the full moon in Libra, which has taken place earlier today in the early hours of the morning. And I will be doing like a quick astrology read through of what was taking place at the time that the full moon opposed the sun in Aries and the moon in Libra. For anybody who's been on my channel before, you will know that this is how I do my collective moon, full and new moon readings. I usually give out a kind of overview of all the astrology, and then I will go straight into the actual tarot reading after that. So in saying that, I will just get my notes because I can never remember it all. There's a lot that's going on in the sky, and I like to go through it kind of in a kind of methodical fashion so that I can express it and explain it as best as I can. So the full moon that we've just had, it was either on the 7th or the 8th, depending where you are in the world, but it took place at 18 degrees and 43 minutes, which kind of makes it more 19 degrees than anything else. And it was known as the pink moon. It's the super full moon in Libra, and it was at perigee, which means that basically it's at its closest point to the earth, and it's the closest point that the moon is going to be for the whole of 2020. So it was huge, it was powerful. And a super full moon affects the tides and it affects the tectonic plates as well. So we may see some aftershocks coming from around the world of tidal or earth movement. All that kind of thing could have taken place or could still take place. Like I said, during the full moon it's opposing the sun, so both of them were at 19 degrees, and so you've got the sun over here, say in Aries, and the moon over here in Libra, and so they are opposing each other. And at the same time as this opposition was taking place with this full moon, we also had them making a T-square to the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, which has been ongoing since about the 27th of March, which kind of culminates today on the day of the full moon. But there is this kind of T-square that's taking place with this energy of Jupiter and Pluto and this opposition between the sun and the moon as well. So it's kind of pulling that energy in to it as well, which is very interesting aspects. So I'll give you a bit more explanation. The moon is all about our emotions. It's how we feel about things, and during the time of the full moon it is being illuminated. Our feelings and our emotions, depending on which sign it is in, is being illuminated by the sun. And because the full moon has just taken place in Libra, it's all about our relationships. It's all about how we relate to each other and how we express ourselves towards each other, what we want from a relationship as well. Because Venus is also the ruler of Libra as much as it's the ruler of Taurus. And Venus is all about kind of our values and how we feel and what we want. So Libra itself, the sign of Libra, represents the other. It represents other relationships, giving and receiving, it's harmony, it's balance, it's justice, it's fairness. It's the objective view, so it's outside of ourselves. Whereas the sun in Aries is the subjective view of the self. It's about me, it's about my world, what I want, how do I feel, my needs. And so it's very much the kind of the two opposing each other. and because the moon is all about our emotions, it has been kind of stirring up all of that kind of side of our relationships and how we are within our one-to-one relationships. As I said, Libra is ruled by Venus, which represents love as well as our values. It's our relationships to others, self. It's our learning to value ourselves as well in Libra, and also with the sun in Aries, which is all about the self. So it's also about learning to love ourselves and not just putting all our self into the other, and allowing that relationship not to be equal and balanced and just and have its own harmony as well. Because so often we kind of pour everything into the other, hoping that we're going to get back the same, and it doesn't always work that way, and then we get disappointed, and that's when relationships kind of hit the rocks as well. So it is kind of saying, you know, that we have to be responsible for our emotional well-being in that respect. We can't expect somebody else to kind of to give us what we need. If they're incapable of doing that, we have to kind of draw back ourselves and say, right, okay, that's enough. I can't keep putting something into something that's not going to feed me back as well. But with Venus now in Gemini, this is also very much about communication. Venus being the ruler of Libra, it's making a trine over to this Venus, or the kind of sign of Gemini is being trined at this moment in time. Gemini is at 03:51 minutes, kind of again 4 degrees, and round it up to the higher number. So, and Gemini is going to be passing through, or sorry, Venus is going to be passing through Gemini from now, and it will go into its shadow period either Thursday or Friday, again depending on where you are in the world, but it's going to enter into its shadow period and start getting ready to go retrograde, which is what it will be doing, and it's going to be in Gemini from now right up until the end of July. So that's a long time for Venus to be in the sign of Gemini, going backwards and forwards. So it's going to go into shadow when it gets to the 05 mark, which isn't very far away. But at the moment, Venus is still quite open. She's still able to kind of be receptive in that sense. And so she's going to actually have the retrograde periods written down here as well. I don't know whether that's relevant or not at this time. Might leave that for another time. So during this period of the full moon, Venus is still open, as I was saying, and receptive, and it's all about thoughts in Gemini. It's all about the thoughts and what it is that she's needing to understand here and to learn, because Gemini is also about our learning as well on a kind of lower level, on the more kind of educational level rather than the higher mind learning. This is more on the kind of day-to-day, the mundane world of learning things. So of course, with everything that's going on as well in the world at this moment in time, with us all being kind of enclosed in our own little bubbles in a way, we're having to find ways to kind of keep ourselves entertained, I suppose, or, you know, kind of keep ourselves busy as well. And so you may find yourself being pulled more towards kind of wanting to learn something, wanting to kind of study something, read, write, communicate as well. You may find yourself writing letters maybe, or possibly you know, social media, texting, all that kind of thing may become a lot stronger with this Gemini Libra full moon, because they're both air. Libra's an air sign, Gemini's an air sign, and air is all about communication. It's all about the kind of the mind, the logical processes of things. And so we're being asked to kind of see where our mind is taking us as well. Where are we being led to? Our kind of thought process. Are we going down a path where we're feeling good about things? Is it a positive place that we're going to? Are we raising our vibration? Are we making ourselves feel better? Or are we kind of being pulled into more of that kind of negative, fear-based, fear-related, worry, stress energy as well? So it's quite important at this moment in time for us to kind of be aware of where our mind is wanting to take us, the path that it wants us to go down. Gemini being the twins, it kind of relates to that dual energy as well, of kind of, you know, one path being more negative and the other path being more positive, and kind of raising your vibrations rather than bringing them down and lowering them. So we need to kind of, you know, try and make ourselves feel good about what we're doing. Try and keep positive. Try and help others as much as we can in the difficult situation that we're in as well, because that will kind of also help us to rise above the kind of negative stories that are out there constantly being kind of played over and over and over at us at the moment. If you put any kind of media news on or read a newspaper or whatever, it's all about the same thing really at this moment in time. So it's kind of saying, you know, do you want to walk away from that and just not ignore it as such, but not allow it to kind of infiltrate into your world and your well-being in your mind as well, so that you're not going into that kind of fear state, and your body's immune system, which is very much affected by this kind of thing, isn't being lowered as well. So it is a difficult time, but it will help us to see this time of isolation as kind of a universal retreat for love as well. So if we can kind of see it as the universe kind of saying to us, right, okay, we are going through this mass changes. There are lots of things that are taking place on this planet at the moment. So while all this is happening, the universe is kind of putting us all into this retreat space. Now it appears in many ways as though it's being forced on us from outside, like to do with establishments and governments and all this kind of thing, but on a much bigger picture, much grander scale. It's the planets that are kind of moved into these positions that are kind of forcing us into this kind of shut down, shall we say, at this present moment, due to what's taking place on a grand scale across the planet. So in the last of the air signs, we find Saturn and Mars, and they're sitting at 0, 1 degrees and 4 minutes in Aquarius. Again, about 0, 1 degrees and 4 minutes for Saturn, and 45 degrees or 6 degrees for not 45 degrees, 45 minutes. I'm kind of getting a bit rushed here and kind of not sure what I'm saying. So Mars is at 6 degrees, and they are setting up this kind of supportive trine at this moment in time with the Venus in Gemini energy as well. So they're both Saturn and Mars are trining across to Venus in Gemini. And the masculine energy of Mars is now kind of giving the support to this feminine energy of Venus, as opposed to the square that took place earlier in the year when Mars and Venus kind of met up in a square, which is more of a challenging energy, more of a kind of standoff energy, really. So the masculine and the feminine kind of went into this kind of standoff energy of not coming together and not seeing eye to eye, and kind of had to go off and do their own thing in many ways. And so Venus is now not only getting the support from the Mars energy, she's also getting support from Saturn as well. And Saturn is kind of behaving like a kind of benevolent, again, masculine but fatherly kind of figure, kind of giving her that support that she needs as she moves into Gemini. And so as Mars is also now pulling away from the Saturn conjunction that it's made recently, it's going to be pushing and forging ahead with this new energy of a commitment, whatever the commitment may be that you've kind of made to yourself for your future. It's kind of, because Saturn is all about commitments and responsibility, and so it's kind of passed that on to Mars, which is now taking that energy forward with it, and it's kind of pushing through at the same time as kind of trining over to Venus and saying kind of like, you know, hey, it's okay, things are going to improve. And so yeah, so Mars has got this new dream. It's fiery, it's passion, it's a vision, and it's all about the desire of the heart as well, what it is that we've been kind of building up since probably like later 2019, things that kind of got put on the back boiler. There was kind of these ideas that started to come in to our heads, and these kind of ways of thinking that we could maybe do this or do that, but it all kind of had to, how can you put it, all kind of had to come to a halt or a stop. And that kind of took place as well with that conjunction of Saturn and Pluto as well, with the kind of beginning of the end, which took place at the beginning of January as well. So this is really what we are seeing at this moment in time, is this collapsing kind of structure that we have been living in for so long, kind of crumbling around us. But Mars is kind of saying, it's okay, you know, I'm in Aquarius now, Saturn's in Aquarius now, and we're kind of pushing forward. Mars is going to move out of Aquarius and into Pisces, and eventually Mars will end up in his home sign of Aries later in the year, not too much, kind of mid-year. I think probably about June or July Mars is there, and then Mars is also going to go retrograde as well and stay in his home sign for, I think it's about 6 months. Could be wrong there, could be wrong, but I know it's quite a long time that Mars is going to be staying there in all. So we also have the Aquarius energy with this Saturn and this Mars being kind of activated, because Mars is an activator. It's what Mars does. And Aquarius energy is linked to the Kundalini, it's linked to the third eye and rising consciousness. So it's also about kind of the new energies that are coming in as well, because it's Uranus ruled. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is of the higher mind. It's a planet that's out beyond our kind of vision, if you like. So it's more out there in the distance, in the kind of God realms, shall we say. And with Mars here, it is activating something else that is very Aquarius and Uranus ruled, and that is this kind of awakening that is taking place across the world as well, this moment in time, as everything kind of shuts down and everything is calmed, and it's kind of, things are just kind of going into this energy of more kind of peacefulness, and kind of back to a time where there wasn't so much hectic energy, this kind of frenetic, hectic energy that we've all been living in for quite some time now, without us even kind of realizing it in many ways. This energy of busyness, of everything constantly moving, of nothing ever stopping, and not being able to give ourselves the kind of time to breathe and relax and kind of take stock. And this is very much what is taking place with this astrology at the moment. So there is this kind of awakening happening within the individual as well as within the kind of outer world as well. As we look around, and we can see that the you know, the pollution is disappearing, and you know, the seas are clearing, and it's like, you know, it's because we are not out there putting out that much pollution as we normally would be. So on the 6th and 7th, the days before the full moon, depending on where you are in the world, we had a grand trine energy in the air signs. And this is really interesting to me, because we haven't really had anything in the air signs for quite some time. Nothing major has really been, like, nothing's been in Gemini for a long time. Nothing's been in Libra since probably about September, maybe October time was the last time I think Mars was in Libra, because Mars has been at the back of the pack, but it's kind of shot across everything now and is kind of picking up speed. But Mars was the last planet that joined the stellium, the Capricorn party as I like to call it, that happened in January. Mars wasn't actually there when it took place. So Mars was the last coming out of Sagittarius. So we haven't really had anything in any of the air signs apart from the moon kind of zipping through. But the moon doesn't really stay long enough for it to kind of really have an effect. So all the planets really have been in Earth. All those planets that we had in the Capricorn stellium, and Uranus has been in Taurus. And also we've had the water signs and the fire signs, but we have not had anything in the air signs for quite a long time. And so I find it interesting that the health issue that is kind of running rampant across the globe at this moment in time is related to our respiratory system and our lungs and the air that we breathe. And literally the air that we need to breathe, to keep us alive. And astrologically, as I was saying, we haven't had any planets there for a long time. And the first planet that has moved into an air sign has been Saturn. Saturn was there before Venus moved into Gemini. Saturn moved into Aquarius first. Now, Saturn is all about restriction and constriction. And so Saturn moved into the sign of Aquarius, an air sign, first air sign, and everything kind of closed down. Everything got restricted, everything got constricted, because that's kind of, I feel, on a larger scale is what is also been taking place within our the physical symptoms, if you like, of this illness is not being able to breathe properly. And Saturn entering into Aquarius being all about sociability, wanting to mix community, friendships, just very sociable. It's the sociable planet, sociable sign, and Saturn being all about restriction, constriction, control, stopping things from taking place. The two of them have come together, or Saturn has come into Aquarius, and the sociability and the community in many ways has just been put into lockdown. Bang, stop, end of. And so in the early parts of Aquarius, I feel that this is kind of what has been taking place and why we're seeing it play out on a global scale. And then Mars, of course, joined Saturn at the end of March. And the lockdown, in many ways, became militarized as well. Because Mars is all about war. It's all about military. It's all about force and aggression. And Mars has also been at 0,5 degrees, 45 again, 0,6. Degrees, squaring across to Uranus, as has Saturn as well, which is the ruler of Aquarius. So it's almost like this square has been pushing that energy of Uranus freedom, sociability, friendship, coming together, gatherings, out. It's been pushing it out. It's been like, no, you can't have that. You can't have that freedom. You can't have that. And Saturn and Uranus, which I spoke about in my previous video, which I did about the Saturn-Mars conjunction, which you can go and check out on my channel if you haven't seen it already. You might want to go and have a look at that. But Saturn and Uranus, which I talk about in that video, are father and son as well. And their relationship is very interesting as well, but I won't go into that now. If you're interested, you can look it up online, or you can go and check out my video, because like I say, I do kind of have a little bit of a background about that as well. So what we are basically seeing is the restraint of the people. So Saturn and Mars together in Aquarius, squaring over to Uranus, which is in Taurus, which is kind of the sign of, well, it's the first earth sign. It's said to be kind of, you know, the good life, all the nice things that we want. It's our finances, it's the way we make our finances in many ways. You know, it's what we do with our finances once we have them as well. So that is also kind of being curtailed at the moment as well, because people can't get out in order to be able to go and work enough, to have enough money to buy the nice things that they're used to as well. So that kind of, you know, the Uranus energy is literally kind of restraining the people in so many different ways. Or the Uranus energy is being restrained by Saturn and Mars representing the people. So this grand trine is awakening the need for freedom, which may well come out as a need to communicate through texts, social media, and it may awaken a spark within you as well, because Mars is kind of that spark, that fiery energy. That gets you to start thinking and looking at things, because this is the grand trine with the Moon, Venus and Mars, all of this energy in air signs. So it may get you to kind of start thinking of things differently, looking at things differently, asking questions that you normally wouldn't be asking yourself, seeing things in a new way, in a way that you've never thought you'd see things before. A light bulb moment as well, being in Aquarius, Uranus ruled. Change, sudden shifts of perspective into a new path in the future as well. As we move out of this dense earth-bound energy of the physical realm, of all this Capricorn earth planets, or earth planets in earth signs, should I say, that have been kind of keeping everything really grounded and really solid and really physical, and everything really kind of dense. It's just that density that we kind of have been entrenched in for quite a few months, probably quite a few years now, but it goes back even further than that. It kind of goes back centuries, when we kind of really got ourselves engrossed in just the physical, that everything became material, everything became physical. There was no room for anything beyond the physical realm. Anybody who kind of tried to bring anything new or different idea-wise into that physical realm was seen as being insane or a heretic, or, you know, there was always these kind of words that were used to kind of put people down who thought differently or had ideas that were not of that kind of time period or the norm, which again is very Uranus Aquarian energy, kind of thinking outside that box, being ahead of your time in many ways. And of course, Aquarius is also signified by this kind of wave energy, which also, it can be like the water, because it is the water bearer, but it can also represent the actual waves of energy themselves that are kind of coming through the air. And things are changing around the planet as well, shall we say, that the energies that are coming in now are of a much higher vibration, that are hitting this planet at this moment in time during the during the Pluto and Jupiter conjunction that we've just had. We had a massive spike, and I spoke about this as well on my previous video of the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, which was also squaring across to Aries as well, which is interesting, and Aries I will be talking about in this video a bit later as well. So, but there was a massive spike in the Schumann resonance of the planet itself, so that also kind of represents picking up on the energies of the planet as well as of the people on the planet as well, and how we are being affected by what's happening outside of our known physical domain, shall we say. So after the full moon hits the 24 mark of Libra, so after the full moon it moves on and it hits the 24 mark of Libra, where it will make a quick square to Pluto, Jupiter, and which are squaring Aries energy, where it will add a bit more emotional intensity to the ongoing world changes that are permanently taking place at this moment in time. So the intensity of everything that is happening at the moment, the permanent changes that are taking place right now due to this Jupiter and Pluto conjunction, the intensity is going to be for a while kind of really brought out by this moon also hitting that spot of 24 degrees and squaring across to the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, which is still squaring across to Aries. Yeah, so the no going back now energy, this intensity could play out in the form of a power struggle. Now, this power struggle could be something that's individual. It could be something that's going to be felt by each of us in our own way. We will kind of have our own way of feeling that power struggle. It may be in the form of a difficult decision in a relationship, or conflict within the self and our relationship with ourself as well. Or it could also play out in a bigger scale within the structures of government, establishment and political parties. So it could also play out on a much larger global scale as well, with everything that's going on at the moment and the different diversive beliefs that are out there as well, and the diversive kind of like mistrust on a larger scale that is also taking place with the power struggle, with everything that's happening on the globe, particularly in one country at this moment in time. So I'm not going to say any more about that. I'm sure you can kind of work that out for yourselves. So coming up on the 12th and the 13th of this month, we also see the Sun conjunct Eris while it's squaring Pluto. And so the Sun will begin to conjunct with Eris, and Eris is still conjuncting over to Pluto, which is still conjuncting to Jupiter at the same time as well. So this is also going to activate and highlight the T-square that took place days earlier during the full moon. So that T-square of the moon, the Sun, the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction squaring across to Eris as well. So there's a lot of different energies all taking place within this at this moment in time. And Eris is now going to be lit up by the Sun as well. Massive Sun next to Eris is going to bring that energy out into our conscious awareness. And Eris, who's already, she's a feisty energy, she's an energy of the female. I spoke a bit about her in my other video as well. She is the unwanted female. She's the uninvited female. She's the discarded female. Eris's name in Roman means discord or discordant or discordia. So she has this discordant energy. She's all about conflict and strife and causing trouble. That's what Eris is about. And the reason that she wants to cause trouble is because she wants the feminine energy of which she represents. She is the sister of Mars, Aries, god of war, and they used to work together in battle. She wants that energy to be recognized. She basically is the female warrior-ess energy that has been subdued and oppressed and not allowed to be out in the open for centuries. And again, I talk about Eris energy in my other video and how interestingly she has been in the sign of Aries for the last 100 years. So also on the 14th and the 15th, so basically from the 12th to the 15th, we have this energy that's going to be followed up. The first 2 days is then going to be, and I've got to get this right because this is quite complex. We have the Sun and Eris in Aries who are conjunct, and they are squaring, which is a challenging energy, over to Pluto, who's still conjunct Jupiter. And at this particular time, we also have the moon next to Pluto and Jupiter. So they are also conjunct the moon, which is now also going to be making square energy back across to the Sun and Eris. Yeah. It's a real kind of real power struggle. I mean, the 12th and the 13th is going to be big energy, but the 14th and the 15th is the kind of one to watch out for, because this really is the kind of major power struggle between the big heavyweight energies, really. And it's going to be intensely emotional, hotspot at this time, when deeply buried feelings individually could emit to the surface, or erupt to the surface, or kind of be brought out into the light. That feisty Aries energy as well, brought out into the light. And this is going to be very demanding. It could be very egocentric. It could be kind of wanting what we want. We want it now. We don't want to wait. We don't want to see evidence. We don't care. We want it now. Don't forget that Sun and Eris conjunct in Aries, and Aries is a hothead. It's the hothead energy, if it's not kind of tempered. And although by the time it gets to the end of Aries, it's kind of more mature, shall we say. The energy is a bit more mature, but it doesn't mean that when it's making squares over to Pluto and Jupiter and the moon, that it's not going to be feeling it. So yeah, impatience, hot-headedness, overreaction, aggressiveness, anger could all get blown out of proportion as well, because of Jupiter, which is all about expansion and hot energy, that kind of hot air balloon type energy, really. Kind of, you know, it just expands everything, just makes everything seem larger than life and bigger than it actually is. But that doesn't mean that it's not dangerous and that it's not going to go bang in your face. So just be aware of the possibility there as well. So yeah, something that's long been kept secret or hidden, or kind of something that you've not wanted to bring out into the light, could very easily erupt into the light of day at this particular time. And again, that is a global thing as well. We could see something come out from the darkness, come out from nowhere, come out from, you know, the hidden realms, shall we say, and it's just gonna, it could just shock massively. It could just shock. So this is also a pivotal time for us to become aware of our understanding of our own involvement in the world around us. Our contribution to the bigger schemes of life on the global stage as well. Basically, how much notice do we take of it? How seriously do we kind of think of it? Is it just something that's over there and kind of, you know, it's nothing to do with me, it doesn't affect my life kind of attitude, which everything is connected. And this again is what the Aquarius Uranus energy is all about. It's about kind of realizing that everything is connected. So everything is affecting everybody else, and we're kind of seeing this as well, the way that this kind of viral health problem has kind of, as a energy in its own right, has kind of managed to move so fast in this kind of connected way, which is why we've had to kind of disconnect, because we are all connected, even though we may not realize it. On some level, on some energetic level as well, we are all connected. So yeah, bigger schemes of life on the global stage, as well as our own story, which Mercury has been gathering together for us since February as well. So Mercury, little Mercury, has been in Pisces since February, kind of gathering together this kind of mission, if you like. It's been on this mission to kind of to go deeper into our subconscious, into our soul journey, because Mercury in Pisces means Mercury in the 12th house, and 12th house is all about the soul, the journey of the soul. It's the last sign of the zodiac, and it's all about kind of sacrifice, surrender, and letting go. In many ways, it kind of represents that point in our life when we do have to kind of just let go of our life, of our physical body, and surrender to something much bigger because we can no longer hold on to it. So Mercury is kind of gathering together this kind of soul mission story of ours, if you like, since it first entered the sign of Pisces, to seek out the mission of our soul. And it's recently come out of its own shadow as well, because Mercury went retrograde back into Aquarius and then come back, and it's come out of its shadow. It's now passed over Neptune and is at 25 degrees 14 minutes, which means that in Pisces, it's sextiling both Pluto and Jupiter, but it's also still conjunct Neptune as well. So this Pluto and Jupiter conjunction is still ongoing, and it's still having a lot of effect with a lot of the other energies that are in play at this moment in time as well. But Neptune itself, which has been in the sign of Pisces since 2012 and is still there, and isn't going to leave the sign of Pisces until 2025, I think it is, 2025. So that's still a long time for this process, which is kind of ongoing, almost like a kind of, how can I put it? For me, it kind of feels like this ending of something that's kind of, you know, it's a long drawn out kind of ending of something that needs to kind of be unwoven in a way so that we can kind of weave something else back together. That's kind of how I see Neptune, because she's very subconscious and very kind of deeper realm energy. But she, at this moment of time, or at this full moon energy, she is making a quincunx across, which is an energy or a angle of 150 degrees, and that is not a very comfortable angle or energy. And so while the moon is in Libra, the moon is comfortable in Libra, the moon is happy in Libra, it feels at home and peaceful in Libra, and that's kind of how it wants to feel. But at this time, it's got this energy from Neptune, which is making it feel uncomfortable. It's making it feel as though it's in the wrong place in many ways, shall we say. And Neptune is at home in Pisces. That's its home sign. That's where it belongs. It knows who it is, what it's doing, and why it's there. And so Neptune is making this energy over to the moon, and there's this kind of sense of a deeply imaginative, it's a very dreamy energy, it's an imaginative energy. Neptune being in its home sign is very creative, it's very very deep feeling, like I said, it's very subconscious energy. And so Neptune is kind of the more powerful, it's in the more powerful position with this quincunx energy. And it's kind of saying to the moon, you know, you need to surrender yourself in many ways, your emotions. You need to kind of let that go, because you don't at this time have all the answers. And the reason we don't have all the answers is because Neptune in many ways is kind of, like I said, still kind of weaving that story together. Neptune is the kind of, I see Neptune as the weaver, the kind of creator, the greater story maker. So Neptune is saying, that right now, everything, there's a lot of confusion as well with Pisces there, and sorry, Mercury there in Pisces. Our brains, our minds are kind of foggy still. There's a lot of confusion about what's going on out there. There's a lot of things that could be right, might not be right. There's nothing definite. It's really foggy. It's really kind of unclear. There's a lot of kind of unclear energy out there at the moment. And Neptune is kind of saying to us, all you can do is just surrender and let go, and kind of just go with whatever it is that is happening at this time. Don't try and fight it. Don't try and make something happen that's not supposed to happen right now at this time. Just go with the flow. And at the moment, the going with the flow is very much about our kind of staying where we are and kind of moving into this stage of just being, just allowing, just kind of, you know, saying, right, okay, this is all I can do at this moment in time. And trust. That's it. Trust. Go with the flow. Trust the journey. Trust what is unfolding in a bigger scale on the universe stage as well. And, you know, the planets know what they're doing. We just have to allow that to take place. And see it as a bigger picture. See it as something that's much more bigger than us, bigger than our ego, bigger than who we believe ourselves to be. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a part to play in it. So lastly, we find Chiron, who is still conjunct with Black Moon Lilith, which I kind of have spoken about briefly in the past. Black Moon Lilith is a little bit like the same energy of Aries, but she is probably more sexually orientated energy, Black Moon Lilith. And it's more the kind of darker, seedier, not so pleasant side of what has been kind of the female story, if you like, the way that the female has been portrayed down the history, this kind of succubus energy and this kind of vampiric female energy. You know, be careful, because she'll just want to, you know, suck your soul dry and steal all your semen and your babies and make baby demons, and that is kind of, there is another story behind all that as well, which I'm not going to go into at the moment. But Chiron is the wounded healer, and is now at 6 degrees in Aries, and is being sextiled from both sides by Venus in Gemini and Saturn and Mars in Aquarius. So Chiron is kind of being supported by these energies. He's known as the wounded healer. He's great at healing healing others, but not so good at healing his own wounds. Being an immortal, Chiron could not actually ever die from his own wound as well, which was why he kind of put all his time and his attention into other people's problems and issues. And people who have very strong kind of wounded healer energy tend to do the same thing as well. They will tend to become healers or care workers, or people who they can kind of focus all their attention onto somebody else rather than looking at their own wound and kind of recognizing that that wound is within themselves as well. So on a bigger scale, that is kind of what is taking place here. Chiron is saying this is the time to heal the self and to find the courage, because it's in Aries, and the warrior nature to face the deepest wound of our own soul's journey. So all of us on this planet somewhere have these deep soul wounds from our journey through this lifetime. It's also about previous lifetimes as well, but because it's in Aries at this moment in time, it's kind of bringing up very much the you know, the beginning, the start of awareness of the healing of the wound. And so this is the wound that we need to heal first, is this lifetime's wound. And so being supported to do this with the love from and the value of ourselves from Venus. Venus is saying, you know, love and value yourself enough to want to do this. And also the courageousness of Mars, along with the older and wiser energy of Saturn, who is kind of playing the role of that supportive, benevolent father figure as well. But now, you know, it's the masculine energy, but it's more mature, it's wiser, it's older, it's kind of been through life, and it's kind of learnt from its experiences with Saturn. That's really what Saturn is about. So Chiron also represents what is known as, like, you know, the abnormal, things that aren't of the norm. And it's what is not so obvious. And it's what it can relate to new forms of healing as well, because Chiron, being the wounded healer, brings in these new ideas of healing. When Chiron was discovered, we got the practice of chiropractic. Chiro practitioners kind of became quite a big thing. Literally, the first kind of few letters of that is Chiron. So there is a kind of relationship there with that healing modality, the kind of unrecognized modalities, shall we say. Things that are not so mainstream, but at this moment in time, there are also things that may become more relevant to us, things that are kind of being brought into the kind of picture of our health and our benefit on a personal level as well. The sign for Chiron is in the shape of a key, which is really interesting as well, because I find that, you know, it kind of signifies the unlocking and the opening of new forms of alternative health and healing modalities, but also kind of unlocking that part of ourself as well, allowing ourselves to kind of open to that and become more acceptable, shall we say, of things that we previously wouldn't have found acceptable. And also, just before I go, I have to mention this, that sitting at 28 degrees of Capricorn at this moment in time and playing her part as well in the energy of the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction that's just taken place, as well as playing her part in the Pluto-Saturn conjunction that took place back in January on the 12th, is the sacred space holder of Clarico, the wife of Chiron, who doesn't actually do the healing, but she holds that sacred space. She creates that sacred space in which that healing is allowed to take place. And so, being conjunct with both Pluto and Jupiter at this time, it's bringing in that transformation. It's allowing that transformation to take place on a very deep healing healing level. You know, it's kind of almost like we can see it playing out again in the world on this global scale as well. You know, if we know what's going on up there in the heavens, we can see it down here, as above, so below energy. And it is literally bringing the light into the dark, or coming out of the dark and into the light, and kind of opening up to this new world and this new transformation that is taking place. So I'm just looking at that time and I can see that it's already coming up for an hour. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it there and just do this as the astronomy side of things, or should I say astrology side of things. And I will probably come back and do this video either later today for the tarot reading to go along with this, or I will do it early tomorrow and get it out. But I'd like to get this particular part out tonight. So I'm just going to say thank you very much to anybody who has subscribed to my channel, everybody who has come over to see my videos, thank you very much. Anybody who's commented on my videos, thank you very much. Please leave a comment down below so that I can see how you feel about my videos. Also, could you thumbs up my videos so that they get out into the bigger YouTube world, because that's how YouTube works. The more thumbs up and likes it gets, the more people get to see it, because the more it gets put out there. So that really, really helps me. It's very beneficial. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please would you do so, as I am trying to grow it. I really want to get my messages out there, because I don't think they're the kind of normal messages either. I am a bit abnormal myself, shall we say, so I'd like to kind of get a kind of alternative idea and view of how the world is out into the wider picture. Also, if you think that this will benefit anybody else, or has been of any benefit to yourself, and you think that anybody else would like to listen to it and get a better idea of what's going on, share this video with anybody you feel might benefit with it. There is going to be a link in the video, in the description box down below on this video, for you to go and check out your own natal chart, so that you can also see where your natal planets lie in can't think of the word at the moment, always one word, in relation, talking of full moon in Libra, in relation to your own natal chart as well. And once again, thank you very much for listening, and please take care of yourselves at this difficult time. Hope to see you soon. Bye bye.